Hey friends, welcome to the inaugural episode of ROTOWORLD's DFS Building Blocks Show. I am John Daigle, joined today by Ian Hartitz. Ian, how's it going?
Doing good, John. We're Thursday afternoon now, got most of our columns written, ready to attack this slate.
ROTOWORLD is currently packed with content, but we are now adding DFS content in particular. Ian, tell them what we're doing today.
So we're going to go position by position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, even a little defensive talk. You know, look at both cash game plays, guys with high floors, you know, people you might want to put in lineups and head-to-head contests or 50-50 contests, no matter what site you're playing on, as well as GPP plays, you know, guys we want the ceilings for, and, you know, go try to win that $1 million if you're so inclined. So at the end, we will make a lineup together, and of course, we'll answer some questions throughout.
We will argue about a lineup together. I'm not sure making a lineup together, but remember, as this is going on, we are also taking your questions. They are being passed along. So please join in the chat on Twitch, on YouTube, wherever you're at, and we'll go from there. So Ian, let's get started with some building blocks. What position do you want to start with?
Let's go QBs.
Okay.
Building block of any NFL team. And
please take the lead, sir.
Yeah, so we'll go cash first, and I think your cash quarterback this week needs to be Russell Wilson. He's at 6,100, and for him to still be this cheap after that performance last week is pretty crazy to me. We saw him go over 400 yards passing, 50 yards rushing, there were 2 rushing touchdowns. I understand it was kind of a comeback mode game script, probably not what we're going to see this week in Arizona, but even if we don't get the same ideal game script, now we got this Cardinals secondary that we need to keep attacking. I mean, we knew this going into week 1 with Patrick Peterson's suspension, Robert Alford being out, like attack this Cardinals secondary, and it's worked out so far. Matt Stafford, QB4 week 1. Lamar Jackson, QB2 week 2. Kyle Allen, QB6 last week. So, you know, keep going back to the well. Even if Russ doesn't, you know, even if this does turn into a blowout, you know, more quickly than we think, Russ is going to have to put up points and touchdowns for it to turn into a blowout. So I'm fine with Russ here. It's a very affordable stack. You can turn in Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Will Dissly is going to be very popular. So sign me up there.
And you're seeing these stacking options with Russell Wilson on your screen now. We also have his projections if you want to check them out. He's ranked quite highly in the ROTOWORLD DFS toolkit, which you can see on the site if you head to the home page. But my building block, the cash game in particular play that I'm going to this week, is Daniel Jones. And I usually don't chase production because that's not the way we win in DFS. But Daniel Jones is just set up with such a great matchup for the second week in a row. The fact that the Giants don't have Saquon Barkley actually helps Jones and the Giants' passing offense because they are now better with Jones going deep with his higher ADOT than with Eli Manning under center. And the Washington Redskins, as much as we make fun of the Giants' defense for just getting scorched, and we'll definitely talk about them later, the Washington Redskins defense just as bad. Second most fantasy points per game allowed to wide receivers. And now we have Jones, who his highest target share went to Sterling Shepard. Evan Ingram got just one target less than Sterling Shepard. So I think it's a match that we are safe to not only play Daniel Jones and the Giants offense, but run it back as well in a sneaky game stack. Like the Redskins are quietly implied to score 23 points. 23 points is not a lot. I understand that. For this Redskins offense, that's a season high. That's a lot of points for the Redskins. So that should tell us everything we need to know about this total.
No, I'm right there with you, and we'll roll right into our kind of more high upside plays because we got to give Case Keenum some look in GPP lineups. Now, look, foot injury, he didn't practice yesterday. We'll see, you know, what happens Friday and Saturday. Make sure to check out Injury Dashboard. You know, we'll have his final status up there eventually. But look, Case Keenum this week is being priced on DraftKings as a QB 23. He's been the QB 9 this season. Look, Monday night against the Bears went terribly. We all saw that. But guess what? A lot of quarterbacks' days go terribly against the Bears. We saw the upside week 1 against the Eagles, and the guy was still, I believe, the QB 12 or so against he was the QB 12 against the Cowboys in week 2. So back-to-back pretty tough matchups there. And then kind of like we were talking about with, you know, both Russ and Daniel Jones, so many stacking partners. You know, we're seeing this Monday night kind of bump that where you can't adjust the pricing a lot. So Terry McLaurin, clear-cut number 1 wide receiver at 4,500 is ridiculous. We'll
talk about him more when we get to receivers.
Yeah, we will. But, you know, I'm fine firing up Case Keenum, Terry McLaurin, Chris Thompson, and some type of small, cheap stack, you know. And, again, knowing that Daniel Jones is this I'm sorry, one more time. Knowing that Daniel Jones is this chalky, you know, going off of Case Keenum in the same game, there's upside there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will go away then. I'll pick a different tournament play that we're doing right now. And so I'm going opposite Patrick Mahomes. We can sit here and talk about Patrick Mahomes. It's quite obvious. You either play him or you don't, because he's always an option every single week. You're never fading him, so to say. You're just trying to take into account every option underneath him. Patrick Mahomes is always good. But I'm going the opposite side and playing Matthew Stafford. Because game script works for the Lions. As you can see, their stack right in front of you. Game script works in favor of the Lions no matter what happens here. If they get blown out, Stafford just leans back and goes downfield a lot. If they don't get blown out and it's a competitive game script, then Stafford is dependent on anyways, because the only way you can beat the Chiefs and be competitive is attacking them through the air. Their ground game, their rush defense, the Chiefs, is not good. I understand that. But this Lions offense know it needs to keep pace. And to do that, you will depend on Stafford, you'll depend on Marvin Jones, and more importantly, the man who was forgotten about last week, who you can just as easily run right back to. You will depend on Kenny Golladay.
Love it. And one thing I just want to quickly note that too. I looked at all the quarterbacks' deep ball rates from this year to last year to see who's throwing downfield more often. Lamar Jackson, #1, largest increase. I think we all knew that. Matt Stafford, #2. His deep ball rate's up 10% from last year. Darrell Bevell has really brought that downfield passing attack to Detroit, and he's got the wide receivers to pull it off.
And remember, guys, everything we're looking at right here, it's available if you go to rotoworld.com. It is the DFS toolkit. So rotoworld.com/DFS will take you right there, right now, if you want to jump in on this. But with that, Ian, let's go ahead and get to our 2 running back building blocks.
Absolutely. So the first one I want to start with might be a little controversial here, but Marlon Mac. To me, at 6,100, you can absolutely fire him up in cash games. Because, look, this is no longer the 2017 Marlon Mac that we grew used to. I mean, he's never going to be this kind of target hog that we like to get sometimes, but when you consider Kamara's off this main slate, Zeke's off this main slate, Barkley's obviously done for 4 to 8 weeks, we just got to get touches any way we can. And behind this Colts offensive line that is arguably one of the best in the league, against the Raiders defense that we just saw Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison run all over. Yeah, I'll take 20 guaranteed touches from Marlon Mac at 6,100. Injuries were a concern last week. I didn't think he was going to be 100%, but just watching him play, I mean, he's played 62% snaps, had 18 touches in a week where he was banged up all the time. Like, if that's his floor, that's fine for me. And, there also is potential for them to run the ball even more with T.Y. Hilton banged up. So, yeah, man, if you are going to have target concerns with the running back, like you want them to be home, you want them to be favored, you want them to have a cake matchup. Marlon Mac has all those things.
And the sneaky thing about Marlon Mac that we all forget about, because it hasn't popped visually on the box score, is that he has been doubled in targets from Nyheim Hines, 10-5 so far. But Mac has run 25 more routes in the year than Hines, which means his on-field usage, that is going to translate soon, and I would imagine it translates as early as this week. My building block is, we're going to keep it simple. We're talking about cash game plays here, and he's not the most talented guy. A 38th percentile SPARQ score coming out of college. He hasn't proven to be a great pass blocker, but the fact that Wayne Gallman now comes directly in for Saquon Barkley, and they only have a rookie who was on the practice squad midweek, right behind him, that in itself projects Wayne Gallman for 15 plus carries. Basically every carry in this offense against a bad Redskins rush defense, it all goes through Wayne Gallman this week. So moving forward beyond this week, I probably don't look at Wayne Gallman inside as a running back 2. I probably put him as a flex play, running back 3, running back 4. But this week, and this particular matchup, and this game script, it all works in Wayne Gallman's favor.
I really want to fade Wayne Gallman in every format possible this week, but like you said, matchup's so good. They brought in a bunch of running backs to try out, didn't sign any of them, so yeah, when they play the Vikings and Patriots, we'll chill out on Gallman, but this week, fire him up.
And if you look at the screen, he is obviously ranked highly because we know he's going to get his touches. That's what he's projected for. His points per dollar is terrific as well. So Ian, hit us with your running back tournament play that you want to speak about.
Another guy that's got some nice value here on our DFS toolkit that, has not been great so far, John. Leonard Fournette.
Oh, okay.
Dale and I were at a bar watching this game last week, and pretty much had to, we watched this guy run to the line, get less than 0 yards rushing literally for 4 quarters of the game. And then the one time we look away, we look up, and he's running 62 yards down inside the 10-yard line. But look, follow the opportunity. I'm going to keep saying that, until I'm homeless after losing all my money on Leonard Fournette. But the guy had a 100% snap rate last week. he can't get any worse running the ball efficiently at this point. And look, this is a spot that he can, at the very least, give us a floor with because he's getting targets. The only guys with more targets than freaking Leonard Fournette this year are Le'Veon Bell, Chris Thompson, Alvin Kamara, and Christian McCaffrey. Like, Leonard Fournette is clearly not on those guys' level as a receiver.
He's a pass-catching back, yeah.
But hey, he gets the targets.
That's all that matters, opportunity.
He gets the opportunity, man. And then with that in mind, too, Denver has not been this lockdown defense that we're used to seeing in the past. I know they're home. They've been really good in September, particularly at home, so we'll keep an eye on that. But Josh Jacobs, week 1, was the RB7 against the Broncos. David Montgomery had an RB17 finish. Aaron Jones, RB16 finish. So it's one of these situations where even if Fournette keeps struggling, he doesn't smash, he's not going to give you that, 2 or 3 points that could really ruin a lineup.
And we have a few questions. Once again, join the chat if you want to, about the Thursday night game. And I just want to say we will get to Thursday opinions at the end of the show. We'll just quickly touch on and get you set up for that showdown slate. But for right now, let's continue talking about running backs really quick. And my tournament option is none other than a backup. And that's not what you want to hear. But it is such a smash opportunity for Justin Jackson, who, among all running backs in the league with at least 15 attempts, Justin Jackson leads in yards per carry. Yards per carry is not usually a stat I tout because it's not sticky. It's not translatable from week to week or year to year. But it is impressive that he still has double-digit carries and he leads every single back with double-digit carries in that particular metric. Here's the thing, though. The Dolphins, historically bad across the board. Historical rate to just blow out every number because they are that terrible at everything they do, especially defensively. And now we look at week 1, 17 carries for backup running back Gus Edwards against the Ravens. Week 2, a combined 8 carries and 8 targets for backup running backs Rex Burkhead and James White behind Sony Michel, who actually got 21 carries in that game. And then last week, as we saw, 19 carries for the starter, but 13 carries for Tony Pollard, 100 yards for Tony Pollard, and a touchdown as the backup. And now it's another opportunity for Justin Jackson to step in as the backup and terrific game script and just run down Miami's throat for at least, I would guess, 2.5 quarters.
Also, beyond the box score, Justin Jackson, back-to-back weeks, he's had a touchdown overturned by penalty. Yards per carry has been insane, could be even more insane.
Quick question here, because we touched on quarterbacks already, so let's go ahead and answer this one. For JDad26, Matthew Stafford or Daniel Jones? So I said Daniel Jones my building block. Matthew Stafford was my tournament play. So if you're asking me which one, let's hear your opinion on it, since I'm the one that said both.
I'm going with Daniel Jones. He gives you that rushing floor that we're looking for. I mean, even if he's not going to score 2 touchdowns every week, this is something that we saw back at Duke. He had 17 rushing touchdowns in his collegiate career there, averaged about 36 rushing yards per game. 36 rushing yards per game might not sound like a lot, but especially in college when sacks are incorporated into that, that's a solid floor.
Okay, we can go ahead and move on here. We'll continue taking your questions as we go on, but let's first get to our wide receiver building blocks.
Yeah, so first guy I got
I hope you don't take mine because it's one that pops.
Tyler Lockett.
Okay, you didn't take mine.
Okay,
good.
There we go. I said before, I want Russell Wilson as my cash game quarterback, so rolling with him and Lockett, great stack. We knew these guys had some of the best chemistry in the league, particularly on deep balls. I mean, literally perfect 158.3 quarterback rating last season, so we knew they had that. The hope was that with Doug Baldwin out of the picture, Lockett would start getting more high percentage short targets and really just be a great consistent fantasy receiver in addition to spike weeks. That's exactly what happened. I mean, he's only had 2 games in his career with double-digit targets, and they've come in the last 2 weeks. They are finally feeding Tyler Lockett the ball. He is balling out with it. He's a great wide receiver, and now he's facing the Cardinals, who, again, have one of the worst secondaries in the league. I mean, keep firing these guys up. And that's 6,300. That is borderline almost like wide receiver 2 territory. And make no mistake about it, Tyler Lockett is a wide receiver 1 right now.
Absolutely. And remember, the Cardinals have allowed the 3rd most opponent plays per game. So this hike in volume, we're going to experience it on both sides in both offenses. I love Tyler Lockett this week. My building block, though, although I also love Tyler Lockett, would be none other than Terry McLaurin. It is a situation as it was in week 2 where the industry gravitated towards Oakland's players simply because they played on Monday night and thus didn't receive a salary hike, since salaries on both sites, DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, don't come out Sunday night. Therefore, all salaries on Monday stay the same. So that means Case Keenum, Dwayne Haskins, Vernon Davis, Terry McLaurin, Trey Quinn, none of them changed. And this matchup for Terry McLaurin is so much better against the Giants, who, as we mentioned earlier, have allowed the most fantasy points per game to opposing wideouts. We laugh at Case Keenum, but fact is, Case Keenum has propelled Terry McLaurin to a team high in target share, a team high in air yard share, a rookie who scored 3 touchdowns consecutively. The past 3 weeks from salary, DFS salary alone, he's smashed by at least 10 points in every game, dollars over expectations. Like, he's just crushing his salary, and yet it stayed the same by the industry's principle. And so it's just an opportunity to jump on, and you go contrarian elsewhere. You just continue to attack that. But we have a few other questions about running backs really quick, or wide receivers. So let's get to this. These may come up as our tournament options, but let's get your opinion on this, Ian.
Yeah.
In tournaments, Mecole Hardman or Philip Dorsett for Sunday. And we're only talking about the Sunday main slate here, by the way, guys. So no Thursday. We'll talk about the Thursday game at the end, and we might hit on Sunday and Monday opportunity. But 12 games, Sunday slate, Mecole Hardman or Philip Dorsett?
I'll go with Hardman here. I mean, you tweeted a cool stat this week about Patrick Mahomes when he was indoors in college, just how much he balled out. His only NFL game indoors was actually a preseason game where, if you remember, he threw this ball like 75 yards in the air to Tyreek Hill, like one of the most insane throws you'll ever see. So, even if we don't have, I don't know, it feels weird to just base a projection off of the fact the guy's going to be indoors, but there's no way this Chiefs pass offense picks this week to let down. And they're going up against a banged-up Lions defense. I mean, Darius Slay, truly one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He's got a nagging hamstring injury right now. So.
And he's been getting bullied. Like that situation, I know when he's at his best and fully healthy, he's great, but you can watch him. Like even Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is great, but Keenan Allen pushed him around.
I will say, though, Darius Slay, give that man some credit for moving into the slot, unlike most elite cornerbacks. But either way, even if he does play, we're looking at him on Sammy Watkins. So Mecole Hardman, fire him up on the outside. Philip Dorsett, he's going to keep getting touchdowns in his Patriots offense, but like Hardman, they are designing deep shots for him. Dorsett, I feel like it's more Brady gets to his third read and, oh, there's an open Philip Dorsett. Let's go to it. Much tougher matchup on the road against the Buffalo defense, allowing league low 184 yards per game over the last 2 seasons.
The answer is Hardman for sure, but the reason I like Dorsett is just because what the Patriots are forced to do now. Quietly, James Devlin's injury, which moved him to injured reserve. The Patriots previously in weeks 1 and 2 played 29% of their offensive personnel and 21 personnel. So 2 running backs, 1 tight end. In week 3, they bumped up their 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets, which obviously helps Philip Dorsett another 20% because they have no choice. They don't have a healthy fullback outside of rookie Jacob Johnson, who they called up from the practice squad. So Philip Dorsett, Josh Gordon, all in terrific matchups. The thing is, we're talking about DFS only here. So given that we have to do the landscape only 7 days ahead, if not sooner, then this matchup in general is so tough for Patriots wide receivers. Yeah. So that's why I lean Hardman. Plus Hardman's ceiling is just great. Another quick question here before we get into our wide receiver tournament plays. 1 of 3, Golladay, McLaurin, or Chris Godwin. And let's assume Chris Godwin's missed practice 2 days in a row. Let's assume that Chris Godwin, yes, has played. Plays at full.
Yeah, I'm out on Godwin this week, even if he does play, just because of how good this Rams secondary really has been when they're at full strength. I think we remember this stretch last season where Marcus Peters was getting beat like a drum every week when Talib was out. Peters was playing hurt, and he was trying to shadow number 1 guys every week. So when they're fully healthy, when Talib's on one side, Peters on the other, and you can just let Wade scheme up his mad defensive genius packages and all that, like they are legit. Only the Rams and Patriots, as far as just cornerback targets are concerned, have not allowed a touchdown yet this season. So they've been truly good. I'm riding with Scary Terry McLaurin here. And, one thing that we didn't mention, I love the cash game play with Scary Terry. And he, if you just watch him play, this is not a guy that looks like a bust. I mean, you said it after week 2, the way he just handled Byron Jones in that really tough matchup.
Bullied him.
Scored against the Bears. I know it was against Buster Screen. They're kind of weaker corner when he moved inside, but that was a tough matchup. He has not just been coasting by on broken plays or anything like that.
No.
Scary Terry is out there winning it on his own.
His route running is super impressive. And then we move on to tournament plays, though, and I will quickly go on one of my favorites, and it is quietly Will Fuller. Because Will Fuller, 7 targets the past 2 games, except we know what we usually depend on from Will Fuller, shot plays. And they either hit or they don't. The fact of the matter is they haven't hit 1 time, despite being in good matchups, basically week in and week out. They haven't hit 1 time. And so his salary for the 3rd consecutive week now has plummeted because he hasn't hit the deep shot. But it's a matchup we should expect to be up-tempo. Just the fact that we know Carolina cannot stop the Texans' passing offense, and the Texans can't stop anyone, whether it's the Carolina's passing offense or not. I know everyone attributes Kyle Allen's performance last week to the Cardinals defense. He just played so good because he played the Cardinals. Kyle Allen as Ian would say, is a baller. And Kyle Allen is really good, and he continues to elevate everyone around him. And this is just as good of a matchup. And the better Carolina's offense does in this particular matchup, the better the Texans have to be. And so I like going back to Will Fuller for tournaments as that ceiling and floor guy.
My only concern with Fuller is that he might see shadow coverage from Dante Jackson, who is one of few guys that can hang with him speed-wise. But if we're talking GPP, like you said, he hasn't done anything, so his ownership's going to be low. And it's not going to be a 100% snap game cover. And even if it is, Fuller can beat this guy for at least a play or two, and he only needs a play or two.
That's all he needs.
Like that call. I'm going with someone a little bit less explosive, but, I'm kind of hoping that, depressed ownership and just opportunities going to get there. That's Robert Woods. He's at 6,100 right now. And we saw, Cooper Kupp get those 2 touchdowns in prime time. He is ingrained right now as the Rams' #1 wide receiver, but it's just his 3-week sample size. I think ideally they still want all 3 of these guys, Cooks, Woods, and Kupp, to be around the same number of targets. I wouldn't say that Cooks and Kupp have just overtaken Woods, in here. He still had 8 targets last Sunday night, even though he didn't do all that much with them. Surprisingly, this guy's got 5 rush attempts through 3 weeks. It's like Sean McVay just wants to feed Woods the ball no matter how he does it. He had a touchdown call back 2 weeks ago, so, he's kind of been on the tip. And then facing a Buccaneers defense that we just saw Sterling Shepard go off against. And, we like to make fun of road Jared Goff, and he's back home. So give me the lowest owned wide receiver.
All right, let's go through quick shots on these questions. B Pink ass. Or no, I'm sorry, Jesse Columbus asks, Matthew Stafford or Jacoby Brissett? Both good plays this week.
Give me Matthew Stafford. Colts are 2 run first.
I just like going with shootouts, potential shootouts, and I think the Chiefs-Lions has the higher potential for a shootout. As we said, the Colts game spells a Marlon Mac game more than anything. I cannot pronounce that name, but let's give it a shot. LXAS2Duckf. That's a crazy name, by the way. Any love for Williams? I'm assuming he means Gerald Williams, since Damian Williams has yet to practice this week.
No, he means Mike Williams. There's a lot of love.
No, hold on. He says Williams on KC. So let's be distinct here. That's my fault. Only McCoy ahead of him right now, who's banged up. We think McCoy will play, but let's assume what we think. McCoy is hobbled, Gerald Williams behind him. How much involvement do you think Gerald Williams gets, and is it enough to make him a tournament play?
I don't really think so, unless Shady does get hurt again and is out. And to see Williams, salary hiked up to 4,700 already on DraftKings, I'm probably going to be out on him. What do you think?
Okay, J Master asked David Montgomery or Wayne Gallman. I think this is pretty easy.
Yeah, you gotta go Gallman here.
It's just it has benefited Montgomery to get the Lions' work of carries the past 2 weeks. Mike Davis has been phased out completely. But Montgomery, it doesn't look good. Let's start there.
Right.
He still breaks tackles, but he breaks tackles, and then he runs that rookie thing that Miles Sanders is doing. He runs east to west. So when he breaks a tackle, he runs sideways, which doesn't gain yardage. It's not what's supposed to be what a running back does. And then plus just a tough matchup against the Vikings. You really, with a 38-point over-under, you don't want a piece of that game unless it's the clear-cut option in Dalvin Cook, in my opinion.
Bears-Vikings, and Jaguars-Broncos, which, we know a lot more of the offensive players on Bears-Vikings, so I think people still want to play it, but both these games, stay away from them if you can.
Tyrell Williams or Marcus Valdez-Scantling plays on Thursday. So remember, guys, main slate only. Let's do this. Peyton Barber or Darrell Williams?
I go Darrell Williams here. We just look, Bruce Arians told us about this backfield when the season started. He said they were going to go hot hand approach. 2 weeks ago, Barber had the hot hand. He got fed. Last week, Ronald Jones had the hot hand. He got fed. We don't know who's going to get fed, but they're going to be playing from behind probably in LA, and that's not too good for Barber.
All right, and then let's get to our tight end building blocks. Ian, why don't you start us off with who is your favorite cash play for tight ends this week?
I'm going with Darren Waller. You got to pay up a little bit, 5,200, but if there's one guy you want to invest in this Raiders offense, it should be Darren Waller. His targets are just absolutely insane. He's got 29 this year. Only Evan Ingram and Zach Ertz have more at 30, and his target share is truly what's bonkers, 30%. The next closest guy is Kittle at 25%, so truly the most featured tight end, which, hey, we saw this happen last year with Jared Cook, who finished as the overall tight end 5. So I do think Waller's good enough to keep it up. And we've just seen Carr zero in on him, again and again and again. A pretty tough matchup against the Colts for the outside receivers because of how much zone coverage they play. We saw him really take away Calvin Ridley last week. Julio Jones got his. He does it against everybody. But really expecting good things from Darren Waller because, too, this Colts defense, Darius Leonard still in the concussion protocol. stud free safety Malik Hooker, he's going to miss the next 2 to 6 weeks. So banged up defense. We just saw Austin Hooper go off against them. Darren Waller is more incapable of continuing to rack up the yards.
I prefer Waller at DraftKings and FanDuel, whereas on Yahoo DFS, which their pricing is very good, but on Yahoo DFS, he is the 5th, 6th highest tight end, I believe, priced. So I go to him and DraftKings and FanDuel. But that's not my building block. My building block is none other than Will Dissly.
Yep.
Because it's Will Dissly week. It is obviously Will Dissly week. We are talking about a Cardinals defense that has allowed week 1, T.J. Hawkinson, 100 yards and a touchdown. And we've seen what T.J. Hawkinson has done since then. Total of 2 targets, a total of 2 catches. Week 2 against Mark Andrews, Mark Andrews has been good, but again, 100 yards and a touchdown. And then week 3 last week, Kyle Allen, backup quarterback, throwing to Greg Olsen, 75 yards and 2 scores. And now we get Will Dissly, who, yes, one of his 2 touchdowns last week came in an untimed down to finish the game that Russell Wilson just launched a 4-yard pass to him that didn't matter because they were trailing by so much. But the way you attack the Cardinals is through the tight end, and the Seahawks, if they are going to keep up in this game, like they will be good in this game, but I don't think they lean on the run heavily. They will still get Russell Wilson involved. And in such a volatile position at tight end that's either high or low every single week, we can depend on Dissly, I believe, for at least 1 touchdown.
And we should finally see him approach something near a full-time role with Fournette in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
now.
that's a terrific point.
So good things there. Okay, so my GPP tight end of the week is a guy who hasn't done a lot so far, but Demetrius Harris, stone cold 2,500 on DraftKings. Look, the guy's had 4 targets this season, 2 catches, 6 yards, and a short touchdown. Guess what? Pretty much everyone in the Browns offense is disappointed so far. Important thing is he's out there all the time ever since David Njoku went down. We've seen him play 78% snaps 2 weeks ago, 90% snaps last week. This is not some dad runner, tight end that just falls forward and can't really do much, and we're just hoping he falls into the end zone. 6'7", 235 with a 4.57 40-yard dash. He averaged 12 and 13 yards per reception over these previous 2 seasons with the Chiefs. I mean, truly a vertical threat. We just haven't seen the Browns really make any vertical plays, period. So I'm willing to look past his, poor performance so far, chase those snaps. I know it's not an ideal matchup against Baltimore, but again, at just 2,500, even if he gets just 2 catches for 30 yards and a score, like you're fine with that.
AZ Newark Master asked, thoughts on Vernon Davis?
So the one problem with Vernon Davis is Jeremy Sprinkle is now getting really involved too. I think both Davis and Sprinkle had 4 targets apiece last week. So Vernon still kind of got the snaps, but as long as they're spreading it around the tight ends, I'm pretty much out on him.
Vernon Davis also had the fake huddle, right? Like he attempted to go for the he attempted to go for the hurdle and then just fell down, like because the defender didn't go for it.
I really thought he was about to.
You have to discount his salary on that.
He was about to AB punter kick the guy, and then he just pulled off.
And then we have a couple quick questions before we get to a tournament play. Actually, you know what? I'll just talk about this guy because he is my tournament play. We went away, as we just discussed, from T.J. Hawkinson because. 1 target the past 2 weeks in both games, 1 catch the past 2 weeks in both 2 games. But in week 3, if you watch the film, hashtag team watch the tape here, Hawkinson not only had a close touchdown that he tiptoed out of bounds in the back of the end zone, he also had one he didn't get his feet down in time for before it got ripped out. It was at his chest and everything. Jumping, leap, grab, and then just had it knocked out. T.J. Hawkinson, week 1 was still second on the team in air yards because they utilized him properly. And perhaps they don't do that. Perhaps they stick with he's been used more to run block the past 2 weeks, and maybe they do that again. But I would assume, just like week 1, that they know they have to use him in this game. They have to exploit every single matchup if they legitimately have a chance to beat the Chiefs. And that's why he's a tournament play, because his floor is miserable. We've seen his floor the past 2 weeks. But his ceiling is high if they utilize him properly.
I think we knew non-Kenny Galladay receivers are going to be inconsistent in this Lions offense, and that's been the case so far. But ride the one that's cheap with the low ownership like Hawkinson coming off the poor weeks and a good spot, like you said.
And we're going to talk about defenses really quickly. You should never genuinely spend up on defenses. It has, the past couple weeks, it's been different because everyone's just been targeting defenses against Miami. It's been an easy play. So perhaps Miami's tanking has also changed the DFS landscape. But in general, you can still find a cheap one. So what's your DFS building block?
I think the cheap one this week is the Panthers at 2,300. They're facing the Texans. We know Shaun Watson takes sacks, and he gets a lot of heat for it. from his point of mind, like, he makes so many plays just extending it in the backfield, and he's so special with his legs that I understand why he doesn't want to check down when he's so many times broken 3 tackles, picked up a big chunk play down the field. But for fantasy defenses, I mean, we want sacks and we want chances for turnovers, and those are 2 things that we have seen from Watson at times over the years. Again, Texans are very good. I could see them put up points, but just 2,300 for a Panthers defense that is not devoid of talent. I mean, we saw them really shut down Kyler Murray with pressure second half of last week. They're getting Bruce Irvin back this week, which will help. And again, wide receiver cornerback matchups, you don't need necessarily to live by these, but James Bradbury is a type of plus-size cornerback that should be able to hang with Hopkins better than most. And like I said before, Jackson has that speed to at least match Fuller. So, you got to ride with your Texans and season long and all that. They have the upside, but the opposite defense could be good too this week.
No, so many people run. That's just a mistake people make. This is why we mentioned on our matchups podcast, on Roto World Football podcast on iTunes on Monday, we discussed San Francisco as a play in week 1, despite the fact they were going against a high-paced offense, because especially when the defense is cheap, you want to target as many plays as you can. You want as much opportunity as you can for your defense to get a turnover.
Yep.
So playing a defense in a shootout is not only not a bad idea, it's a good idea that people run away from too often. Mine is pretty simple. It's for the reason I just explained, and it is that I search for play volume, and I think Seattle is in a terrific spot despite being on the road. A friend of the show, Rich Rebar, called it the horizontal raid that the Cardinals are running right now because they're just going at the line of scrimmage as opposed to attacking the secondary. But the fact is, Kyler Murray hasn't shown us 4 consistent quarters. Even last week, he showed up for 3 quarters, but he was off for 1. It turned into that Cardinals offense that we ran away from the first few weeks. And they do just enough and make just enough mistakes that it is worth playing Seattle, getting a ton of opportunity to play defense against them, that one mistake could cash you an easy defensive touchdown.
I'm a little worried about how we're approaching the Seattle defense just because they've literally faced...
They're not good.
Yeah, they got ravaged by Andy Dalton in week 1, and they've gotten to face Mason Rudolph and Teddy Bridgewater. But you know what? If Kyler Murray keeps playing like he did in that last quarter, and he's going to keep making mistakes, at least to some extent, I'm with you.
So we're going to build a lineup, which is going to get sketchy. But first, really quickly, let's go 2 more rapid-fire questions.
Cool.
Pick 2, Sterling Shepard, Julian Edelman, Sammy Watkins.
I'm going with, I would go Shepard and, ooh, that's tough. Crap. No, I go Edelman and Watkins, I think, over those 2. You're just looking at better offenses, I think, and Edelman is banged up. At the same time, if you are going to attack the Bills, you want to do it in the slot. Watkins, I know it hasn't been great since week 1, but still, just in that spot, high-scoring game, I want those 2.
That's fair. I go Shepard and Watkins. The Lions defense, I genuinely feel like they're going to shut down 2 of the Chiefs' offensive players. If they play Travis Kelce like they did Zach Ertz, literally a bracket and a double team on every single snap, then that means Kelce's shut down. And then they stick Darius Slay, whatever we think of him, they stick Darius Slay on either Demarcus Robinson or McCole Hardman in the slot. That leaves Sammy Watkins and the other open. The fact is, especially with a nagging hamstring, Slay can't cover Hardman, arguably the fastest person in the game when Tyreek Hill isn't on the field.
Yep.
So Hardman's the play there, and then I think Sammy Watkins, who's played the highest snaps among their wide receivers in the slot, I think that's another terrific play in that game.
Yep.
Then one more quickly. Let's get to this one. LaShawn McCoy or Chris Thompson?
I'm going with Shady. Just give me the guy in the better offense. Chris Thompson, so many
440 in every game so far, at least 4-40.
For sure, and I feel like 3-30 of that has come with them down multiple scores in the 4th quarter and catching
fair,
up.
yeah.
With that said, like, the Redskins are going to be in a lot of those situations this season. I don't exactly see that changing. We've already seen, Gruden openly talk about not wanting to be in I formation with Adrian Peterson every game. We've seen that come to fruition. I just still want the guys in the Chiefs offense. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, so with that being said, we will now build a lineup.
Ooh.
Short 2 players, by the way, because legal rights say we have to keep 2 players out. We can't build a full lineup.
Okay.
Just to let you know. So I'll let you start. And this is going to be an argument. This is going to be shaky. We've never tried this. It could get dicey here.
All right. I'm riding with my quarterback I mentioned before, Russell Wilson. Gives us some fun stacking partners down the way potentially. And, yeah, maybe he does screw around and rush for some more yards again.
And remember, we're actually doing this. You can follow along at home, rotoworld.com/DFS. This is the optimizer we have in the DFS toolkit. This is our projections as well. And it also includes our rankings in the back end and the premium package. So feel free to jump in and join.
And we will be entering this in $1 million contest. So if you want to
One of us is going to burn our money and enter this.
If you guys want to split the first prize with us, that's fun.
We'll talk about our weekly results next week too. But I go to, well, you kind of forced me here. Yeah. So go ahead and get the stack going. Give me Tyler Lockett.
Lockett, okay.
Who, as we said, the past 2 weeks alone, number 5 in air yards among all wide receivers, number 6 in top 2 in targets among all wide receivers the last 2 weeks. We were concerned in week 1 whenever he only got 2 targets, especially because he didn't receive it till midway through the third quarter, his first one. But we're going right back to Tyler Lockett. You can probably just type it in.
Yeah, no, I already got him in there. I do want to point out that another guy that you should consider in this spot, DK Metcalf, at only 4,800.
I thought about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing it. We're doing 2 wide receivers.
We're doing a double stack?
We're doing a double stack because
Metcalf without Disley too. He's good and shaky.
Yeah, we're staying off the chalk with Disley. Metcalf, he's giving you less ownership in this spot. All those things we said about the Cardinals secondary being, terrible and good for Disley and Lockett also apply to Metcalf. The guy has a decent floor. He's cleared 60 yards. He's at least six targets in every game. I understand the guy doesn't run the best 3-cone drill in the world, but guess what? He's getting deep balls, and we can bank on that.
Okay, we got to start getting some more points in here, though. Stuff Kenny Golladay in there for me.
Kenny G?
Yeah, we're going Kenny Golladay. If we don't have, you either go Golladay or Kerryon Johnson, depending which part of the offense you want to attack, as you just left our lineup. It's fine, don't worry.
I clicked on his name.
So I am fading. You didn't have to jump off. It's fine. It's okay. Mistakes happen. It's live TV. It's okay. So I go Kenny Golladay only because I am such a big fan of obvious opportunity being leveraged in the following week whenever the player performs poor. And as we saw last week, 2 catches for Kenny Golladay. I believe he finished with 14 yards. So that just means I go right back to him because that's what DFS players do. We just chased opportunity, and I'm going right back to him and chasing opportunity. So we had Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Kenny Golladay. That leaves 3 receiver spots taken up with 1 flex to go.
Okay, so the one running back that we got to find a way to squeeze in here is Christian McCaffrey. Because at this point, there's no other running backs even like him. We had these arguments all offseason. Is it Kamara? Is it McCaffrey? Is it Saquon? Is it Zeke? McCaffrey is the only one of those 4 now in this main slate. He is just so locked and loaded as the number 1.01 RB right now. And all right, now we got the lineup working again. Fantastic.
It was working the whole time. I don't know what you're talking about.
So give me McCaffrey in there. He's got the highest touch floor in the entire slate against the Houston defense that does not deserve our respect in any world.
I totally agree. And I think DJ Moore, Greg Olsen, Curtis Samuel are all viable, but clearly we know the offense runs through McCaffrey, both in the passing game and on the ground. And we both project this to be a shootout, a high-scoring game where neither offenses are stopped. So that's what we're going with right now. So we have a Seattle stack. We have 3 receivers. We have Kenny Golladay as well with the Seattle stack. And then we have Christian McCaffrey. Let's go ahead and make this an official game stack. In cash games, remember, you chase touches and opportunity, so you typically 90% of the time, probably higher than that honestly, you go running back in the flex spot, but there's a tournament lineup. We're chasing upside, and we need a game stack. So we need to run it back with Christian Kirk, who the results have not been there per se, but 12 targets, at least 12 targets in 2 of 3 games played. He's still getting the air yards. Larry Fitzgerald is their downfield receiver. But as we know, Larry Fitzgerald, historically the past 5 years, has faded with time as the season has gone along, age has caught up to him, and just slowly wears and tears down. Christian Kirk's still young. Christian Kirk an integral part of this offense. And if we get a shootout, I would imagine a high stake of those targets go through Christian Kirk.
So many good things are going to happen with Kirk, too, just from the simple fact he lines up in the slot all the time. I mean, so few teams are willing to move their best cornerbacks inside. So we're going to keep seeing him in good matchups, and that's what he has this week.
And then the last spot that we're picking, and then we'll let everyone else fill it out.
Oh, nice.
So, tight end. Hit me with it.
No, I want to put our defense in.
Okay,
we'll
that's
let
fine.
the viewers do that. We're stacking McCaffrey and the Panthers defense here. Because, again, they're so cheap. I want to give our loyal listeners the most salary cap possible. So, yeah, we now have 10,700 remaining with the running back and tight end.
No, you can easily make that happen.
Yeah, we should have a good player pool either way.
And with that, Ian, the first inaugural DFS building blocks on ROTOWORLD has officially come to an end. How do you feel?
I feel good. You know, we'll be better in future weeks, but hey, that's like anything in life.
Considering
right?
we just pumped coffee and then ran to the studio, I think it went pretty well. So, from Ian Hartitz, from John Daigle, myself, remember, rotoworld.com/DFS if you want to follow along. Thank you for your questions, and we will be back next week for more. Thanks for tuning in, guys.